A moment once existed when Dubai didn't just reshape its skyline, it reshaped the sea itself. From above, the coastline became something almost surreal, palm trees etched into open water, entire continents recreated in sand, projects so vast and precise they felt less like construction and more like control. Billions flowed into a singular belief that nature could be redesigned. For a while, that belief held. Stability seemed unquestionable. Villas sold rapidly, while images of these islands traveled across the world as symbols of limitless ambition. This wasn't merely luxury, it was a declaration of dominance over geography. Now, in certain areas, that permanence feels less certain. Shorelines appear to shift. Maintenance never quite ends. Some properties feel harder to justify than before, not collapsing dramatically, but slowly, quietly adjusting. The question has changed. No longer whether these islands were impressive, but whether they were ever as stable as they appeared. This story may not be about engineering alone, it may be about illusion. At its core, the promise was extraordinary. Dubai introduced something no natural coastline could offer: exclusivity designed from nothing. Private beaches where none existed. Waterfront views engineered to perfection. Ownership wasn't just about property, it was about rarity. Scarcity, manufactured at scale. Palm-shaped islands carried more than visual impact, they carried psychological weight. Control, precision, permanence. A suggestion that with enough capital and vision, even the ocean could become an asset class. For investors, that idea proved irresistible. Not just real estate, engineered prestige. During the golden era, demand mirrored that belief. International buyers moved quickly. Villas along the outer fronts sold at premium prices. High-net-worth individuals viewed these properties as both lifestyle statements and long-term stores of value. Tourism campaigns amplified the narrative, while global media reinforced it. These islands became more than developments. They became proof that ambition, backed by capital, could override limitation. Yet beneath the surface, the system remained more delicate than it appeared. At first glance, everything looked structurally sound. Engineering was advanced. Planning was meticulous. Visually, flawless. Surface impressions, however, tell only part of the story. What matters more is the effort required to maintain that perfection. Reclaimed land behaves differently than natural ground. It settles, it shifts, it depends on continuous intervention. Breakwaters absorb energy. Sand requires replenishment. Infrastructure must constantly adapt to inherently unstable conditions. Over time, one thing becomes clear: not failure, but dependence. Dependence on maintenance, on capital, on continuous attention. The flaw wasn't in the concept itself. The reality is that stability was never fully self-sustaining. For years, that distinction didn't matter. Confidence filled the gaps. Buyers trusted the system. Investors believed in the long-term vision. As demand continued rising, underlying complexity remained hidden in the background. Eventually, subtle signals began to emerge: erosion in certain areas, quiet reports of ongoing adjustments, costs gradually increasing. A growing awareness that these were not static assets, they were dynamic systems. And dynamic systems demand constant input. Nothing collapsed overnight. Instead, permanence began to feel conditional. In markets driven by perception, that shift carries more weight than it initially appears. Once structural stability is questioned, not visually, but fundamentally, that's where real pressure begins. What changed may not be the islands themselves, but the way they are seen. For years, the illusion held. At sunrise, everything looked flawless. Water wrapping around engineered coastlines, villas aligned with geometric precision, private beaches stretching into controlled seas. From a distance, it felt inevitable, as if this reality had always existed. Beneath that surface, friction was quietly building. Nothing appeared broken. Properties stood. Infrastructure functioned. Images continued to circulate. The deeper question, however, isn't whether something works. It's how much effort it takes to keep it working. That distinction began to matter. Maintenance, once invisible, became harder to ignore. Sand replenishment, coastal reinforcement, structural monitoring, none of these were one-time solutions. They became ongoing requirements. For many, that realization reshaped ownership itself. Failure wasn't the issue, dependence was. And when long-term value relies on stability, dependence introduces a different kind of risk. What makes this shift more significant is its subtlety. No dramatic collapse, no singular breaking point, just a gradual awareness, especially among investors, that these assets behave differently from traditional real estate. Not fixed, not passive, active, dependent. For some buyers, that translated into hesitation. Costs added another layer. Ownership extended beyond the initial purchase. Service charges, maintenance contributions, infrastructure upkeep. Individually manageable, but collectively transformative. Because at a certain level, luxury is expected to feel effortless. When it begins to feel managed, the experience changes. Not just today, over decades. Belief didn't disappear, but it changed form. What was once instinctive became conditional. What felt certain turned analytical. Confidence, slowly, became cautious. That shift matters. Luxury has never been defined only by what exists. It lives in perception, in the feeling of ownership, in the quiet assumption of permanence. Alter that feeling, even slightly, and the system begins to move. Pressure had been building for years beneath the surface. Eventually, it found direction. No collapse. No singular breaking point. A convergence. Global conditions began to shift. Capital grew more selective. Rising interest rates tightened liquidity that once flowed easily into ambitious developments. Investors who had chased expansion started reassessing exposure. Within that reassessment, one factor became harder to ignore. Time. Artificial land behaves differently as years pass. It settles. It reacts to tides, currents, and environmental forces that cannot be removed, only managed. Previously, that management was taken for granted. Now it is being questioned. What stands out is how quickly confidence can reprice complexity. As investors compare opportunities across regions, abstract concerns become practical calculations. How stable is this really? What does long-term maintenance actually cost? What happens when conditions shift? And most importantly, who carries that risk over time? Visually, little had changed. The islands still appeared as they always had. Yet appearance is only part of the equation. A growing awareness began to take hold. These structures exist within systems that demand constant input to remain viable. At the same time, another force emerged. Competition. Coastal cities with natural shorelines, established infrastructure, and deeper historical grounding began to feel more dependable. Not necessarily more extravagant, but more predictable. In uncertain environments, predictability becomes valuable. That's where pressure intensifies. Luxury markets are not driven by wealth alone, they operate on confidence. And confidence is relative. It shifts, it recalibrates. It responds as much to perception as it does to fundamentals. When alternatives appear even slightly more stable, capital reacts. Not by vanishing, but by hesitating. Decisions slow. Negotiations tighten. Buyers wait for clarity. In markets built on momentum, hesitation carries weight. Developers began to adjust accordingly. Incentives appeared more often. Payment structures extended. Marketing language evolved, moving subtly from exclusivity toward opportunity. Small changes, revealing ones. Demand didn't disappear. Urgency did. Without urgency, sustaining premium pricing becomes more difficult. Beneath financial movement, another shift unfolded. Narrative. These islands were once framed as engineering triumphs, proof that ambition could reshape geography itself. Increasingly, they began to represent something more layered, a question of limits, not whether such projects could be built, but whether they should exist at that scale, with that level of long-term dependency. The vision wasn't flawed. Its assumptions, however, are now under pressure. As those assumptions are tested, perception evolves. What has changed may not be the structures themselves, but the confidence surrounding them. And when confidence begins to fluctuate, even the most extraordinary creations start to feel less certain. The question has shifted. No longer whether these islands can exist, but whether they can sustain the belief that once made them so valuable. That is a far more difficult challenge. What followed wasn't a dramatic collapse, it was a quiet slowing. At a glance, everything still appeared intact. Villas remained in place. Beaches stretched outward. From above, the symmetry still reflected the same ambition that once defined these developments. Yet something felt different. Activity began to ease. Transactions slowed, listings stayed on the market longer, and projects that once moved with urgency now seemed to pause, not abandoned, but no longer moving at the same pace. In high-end markets, that kind of stillness reveals more than decline. Falling prices are only part of the picture. Momentum is what truly matters. Some properties began adjusting in value, not sharply, but enough to reshape expectations. For many owners, appreciation had always been assumed. What emerged instead was variability. And variability introduces doubt. Absence over time becomes visible. Beaches that once suggested exclusivity feel quieter. Roads designed for constant movement carry less activity. Certain clusters, especially those still developing, appear incomplete, not structurally, but atmospherically. Presence has thinned. The silence becomes part of the experience. These islands are not empty. They simply aren't as full as they were meant to be. That distinction matters. Maintenance continues, yet it no longer feels invisible. Shoreline adjustments, reinforcements, ongoing infrastructure work, processes once hidden now shape the environment as much as the architecture itself. Luxury was meant to feel effortless. In some cases, it now feels managed. That subtle change reshapes perception. Beneath the surface, behavior is adjusting. Buyers take more time. Investors compare more rigorously. The narrative of inevitability, of prices moving in only one direction, has softened. Confidence hasn't disappeared. It has become conditional. In systems that rely on continuous inflow, conditional confidence slows everything. Developers respond, but those responses reveal the shift. Payment structures become more flexible. Incentives increase. Marketing begins to emphasize value rather than exclusivity. The question has evolved. Not how rare is this, but how sustainable is this? And that question doesn't fade quickly. Some areas remain resilient, particularly those with established occupancy and integrated infrastructure. Others, especially projects dependent on future demand, struggle to reach their intended scale. That contrast is telling. The issue isn't uniform decline, it's uneven stability. Certain segments hold firm, others require ongoing support. Over time, that imbalance becomes harder to ignore. Functionality hasn't disappeared. What has changed is the sense of inevitability. And when inevitability fades, so does the premium attached to it. In luxury markets, perception doesn't simply follow reality. It defines it. What shifted may not be the structures themselves, but the certainty that once surrounded them. Gradually, attention began shifting elsewhere. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but with quiet intention. Capital rarely vanishes. It moves, reallocates, and searches for stronger footing. For global buyers, engineered coastlines started competing with something more grounded. Natural shores. Established cities. Locations where luxury isn't built overnight, but layered over decades. Within that comparison, small differences become decisive. A beachfront villa may look identical at first glance. Yet value isn't defined by the view alone, it's shaped by everything surrounding it. Across other markets, luxury connects to permanence, land with centuries of history, infrastructure refined over generations, legal systems that feel predictable, cultural identity that doesn't need construction, it simply exists. That combination produces a different kind of confidence, less dependent, more inherent. As alternatives strengthen, perception begins to carry weight. What stands out now is a redefinition of value. Buyers are no longer focused solely on present appeal, they're evaluating long-term behavior, stability, liquidity, resale potential, not just spectacle. The issue isn't that Dubai's islands lack appeal. The challenge is that competing destinations now offer narratives that feel more enduring. Southern Europe's coastlines, North America's waterfront cities, emerging luxury hubs across Asia. These places may lack visual drama, but they offer something else: continuity. And in uncertain environments, continuity becomes a luxury of its own. Tourism patterns reflect this evolution. Travelers increasingly seek experiences that feel authentic, layered, and connected to place. Not just visually impressive, but emotionally grounded. Engineered environments aren't rejected. Expectations have simply evolved. Luxury today isn't defined by access alone, it's defined by meaning. And meaning cannot be easily manufactured. For investors, this introduces a different calculation. Not just how much can this grow, but how resilient is it if conditions change? Answers to that question aren't always clear. And when clarity fades, caution rises. That's where pressure truly begins. Markets like these were built on momentum. The expectation that demand would expand continuously, that new buyers would replace old ones, that value would reinforce itself over time. When that cycle slows, even slightly, underlying dependencies become visible. Maintenance costs, environmental exposure, market saturation. Individually manageable, collectively influential. The shift isn't abandonment, it's evaluation. More critical, more comparative, more cautious. And once that mindset takes hold, systems must adapt. Because luxury is never defined purely by price, it's defined by confidence. And confidence, once questioned, rarely returns unchanged. What emerges here extends beyond a single project, or even a single city. It reflects something deeper about modern luxury itself. For years, developments like these suggested that ambition could override limitation. That with enough capital, engineering, and vision, anything could be created and sustained indefinitely. Now, a different reality is becoming visible. Luxury isn't just constructed, it's believed. And belief depends on continuity, trust, and perceived permanence. The real question isn't whether artificial islands can function. It's whether they can sustain the level of confidence required to justify their existence over time. Because confidence doesn't collapse instantly. It shifts. Quietly. Gradually. Almost invisibly. Until inevitability starts to feel conditional. And that subtle shift changes everything. Looking forward, several outcomes remain possible. One path leads to stabilization, continued investment, improved engineering, and sustained global interest reinforcing confidence. The islands adapt, refine, and remain relevant symbols of modern luxury. Another leads to stagnation, demand persists, but without urgency. Prices fluctuate within tighter ranges. Development continues, but momentum fades. And then there's reinvention. Not just structural, but narrative. A transition from spectacle towards substance. Towards sustainability, community, and long-term resilience aligned with evolving global expectations. Each outcome depends on a single factor. Confidence. Not a byproduct, but the foundation itself. The islands won't simply disappear, but their meaning may be changing. From symbols of limitless ambition to examples of the limits of engineered perfection. That may be the deeper story. Not failure, recalibration. a reminder that even the most extraordinary creations exist within systems, environmental, financial, psychological, that cannot be fully controlled. When those systems shift, perception follows. And what may have changed isn't the islands themselves, but the story people tell about them. In a world where perception defines value, that story matters more than anything. So the real question becomes, were these islands a permanent redefinition of possibility, or a moment where ambition briefly moved ahead of reality? Share your perspective below. And as always, this analysis draws on publicly available information and broad interpretation, intended to explore patterns and ideas, not to criticize any place, project, or people.